Parthaya Pradibodhidam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gradhidam Puranam Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Mradavarshini Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatva Manusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marudastunnandi Divyastavai Vedai Sangapadakramopanishadir Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pasyandi Yam Yogino Yasyandam Navidusura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha. We are discussing the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and we were discussing the three levels of human temperament called three gunas: Sattva-guna, Rajo-guna and Tamo-guna. We cannot really explain the true nature of these temperaments except in the context of some examples. If a person shows an extreme level of wisdom, moderation, self-restraint, still possessing the ability to accomplish great things, he is a typical example of a man endowed with Sattva-guna, or a woman. If the same person doesn't show moderation, wisdom, or self-restraint, but very proud and very proud of his accomplishments, he exhibits, he parades all his qualities and his wealth, then he is characteristically called a man endowed with Rajoguna. Somebody who is lazy, ignorant, confused, lethargic, and still full of desires and ambitions, still not ready to work to accomplish them, he is an example of Tamoguna. Three types of human temperaments. Now, we already discussed this in different contexts. We discussed the sixth verse. Now we are going to discuss the seventh one. It is very important and very interesting also. You can just see how an ancient text tells you about the effect of the food that we eat and how it influences our character and temperament. It's a very well-known part of this text. This is the seventh verse. Aharastobi sarvasya trividho bhavadi priyaha yajñas tapas tatha dhanam tesham bhedam imam srunu. It's the beginning of a discussion. The food that we eat is also is linked to these three gunas, and also the way we practice rituals, the way we practice austerity, and the way we practice charity. In all this we can see these three characteristics. That is how food, the way we perform rituals, the way we practice austerities, and also the way we practice charity, good nature, or maybe philanthropy towards other people. Now, in this context, perhaps the best way to explain this part of the text is in the light of a much more important scripture and much more ancient. It's from Samaveda, roughly around 4000 BC, 4th or 5th millennium. That's the age of Samaveda. And there is one very important part of that text, that scriptural tradition. It is called the Upanishads, Chandogya Upanishad. And this book contains the first important discussion on the effect of what we eat and the true meaning of food. Therefore, if you look at the commentary of the great commentator Shankaracharya belonging to 8th century AD, you can see a very comprehensive idea of the importance of food and also different implications of food. So food doesn't just mean what we eat. Food also implies, it indicates what we imbibe, the associations, the circumstances, the places, the workplace, the office, the factory, the house, the family. In all these places, we can see we are imbibing our five senses of perception. In short, our mind is eating food. It's not food that you buy from Trader Joe's. It is the ideas, associations that somehow impact on our emotions and feelings. So that is an important meaning of ahara. So the text is very, very famous. It is quoted by Patanjali. It is quoted by all the great commentators of Yoga Sutras. Vyasa, Vijnana Bhikshu, Vajaspati, Bhojaraja, who is a great emperor who wrote a commentary on Yoga Sutras in the 5th century AD. So you can find in all these texts. This is very, very important. This is being quoted again and again. The text is Ahar Shuddho Sattva Shuddhi, Sattva Shuddho Dhruva Smritihi, Smritilabhe Sarvagandhinam Vipramokshaha. It's a simple text. So Ahar Shuddho Sattva Shuddhi. If the food is pure, then mind also becomes pure. And then Sattva Shuddho Dhruva Smriti. If the mind is pure, then our mind develops an ability to remember and practice great ideas, great spiritual disciplines. So if your mind cannot forget some very important, let us say, parable from the Bible, if you are a Christian, then your mind is pure. But suppose your mind immediately forgets what you read in the Bible, the parable or the Sermon on the Mount, but you always remember a few lines, you call one-liners from Terminator, then mind is not so very good. So what we remember is what we are interested in. And what we are interested in depends upon the structure of our mind. If our mind is pure, the mind will never forget something good that it imbibes. If your mind is pure, then you read one very wonderful spiritual thing, mind will remember. If mind is not ready for it, it means it has not reached the high level of perfection or purity. Then that mind immediately forgets all the good things and remembers all the unpleasant things. So that's it, what the text tells you. And Shankaracharya writes a very famous commentary. It's quoted so many times. In Vivekananda quotes almost 4 times in his complete works. So, Ahara Suddho Sattva Shuddhi. Sattva Shuddhi means purity of mind. Sattva here means mind. And mind doesn't mean just what we normally understand about psyche in English. It means all the 4 important functions of the mind. When you see something from a distance, you speculate. It's a car or a truck, or if it is some kind of, if it is dark, you may wonder it's a pillar or a post or a human being. It's not visible clearly. Speculation, that's part of mind. When you reach the place and you find it is not a human being, it is just a pillar which you could not clearly distinguish from a distance. It is the intellect, buddhi we call, that is active there. And then you remember, oh, this is something that I saw yesterday on the same spot, the same street. It is a memory system. And then again you identify yourself as the person who saw this the previous day. It is the ego system. So mind is a very comprehensive structure here. Mind includes the speculative faculty, the ability to recognize things, the intellectual faculty, the memory, and also the sense of identity. Now, the entire mind system is involved here. So, mind becomes very pure when the mind can imbibe, can reinforce, can enrich itself with good things that it gets from outside world. And the great commentator Shankaracharya writes, it's very interesting, Ahara Suddhu Ahriyate iti Aharaka. So what it means is, Ahara in Sanskrit, the literal meaning, if you go to dictionary, it means food. In a general way, it also means not just solid food, also drinks also, so to speak. What you eat, what you use what you use your mouth to enjoy the taste. So anything can be food. That is ahara. But the commentator says ahara has got a higher meaning. It also means the thoughts that you observe from outside world. You see something, and that visual experience has an impact on our mind, on our character, on our behavior. So that is food. So, iti aha, sabdadi vishayavijnanam bhoktuhu bhogaya akriyade. So, we use our mind and we use our 5 senses of perception along with our mind. The eyes and mind come together and we see things. We can see things from a distance, an object that we can see as an object. And maybe we come to know of the presence of a car or a vehicle in the neighboring street by hearing the sound. So again, we know the quality of something that we eat by taste. And maybe in the dark, when you touch the table, you know the presence of the table close by touching. And also by smell. By smell we understand things around. So all these 5 senses of perception and the objects of perception of the 5 senses, they all bring food to our mind. That's an interesting thing. And they decide our character. So tasya vishaya upalabdhi lakshanasya vijnanasya suddhi akara suddhi. Now, so whatever the mind imbibes from outside world should be pure. And that purity will help us in our spiritual life. Such a mind can have a tendency to absorb more and more from external world. So whatever we have in our mind, it wants to get more of that. If a mind is not pure, it has got of unpleasant things in its system, then it wants to get more of that. If the mind is pure, at the same time, it has a tendency to go in search of good and great things, then it will have a tendency to absorb more and more of those wonderful, pleasant, healthy memories, healthy experiences. So whatever the mind has already got in its system, it wants to get more of that. So what happens is, and then what is purity? Purity means raga, dvesha, moha, doshehi, asamsrishtam, vishayavijnanam ityarthaha. Tasyam ahara suddho satyam tadvataha andakarana sattvasya shuddhi nirmalyam bhavati. Sattva cha satyam yada vagate bhuvatmani dhruva vichinna smriti avismaranam bhavati. So this is just a statement which I read from the great book of the commentator Shankaracharya. What it means is, so I shall explain in detail. What it means is, as I mentioned, when our mind is pure, then what happens? That mind can always remember all the good, positive, spiritually very positive things that it connects with. And when the mind is not pure enough, then it has a tendency to forget good things and then always remember the unpleasant things, which may not be helpful for spiritual life. Now, in the text we can see this explanation goes further. In that verse we can see aharastubi sarvasya trividho bhavadi priyaha yajnastava tadha danam tesham vedamimam srunu. And then afterwards, the text explains certain very important principles with regard to food that we should eat, the food that we should avoid. You can see this 8th verse. Ayu satya balarogya sukhapriti vivardhanaha rasyaha snigdhaha sthira hridyaha aharaha satvika priyaha. So what types of food will be liked, would be enjoyed, would be preferred by people with a good temperament, with Sattvic temperament, with, let's say, spiritually oriented characteristics. So first that list is given, then the reasons are given. It's anyway, so here, of course, this should be interpreted in the context of our own times. The food that will enrich vitality, energy, strength, health, cheerfulness, mental equilibrium, appetite, and which are normally enjoyable, which are like to give contentment, and also which is, we call it the real meaning of this, sthira, I mean, because maybe substantial and also agreeable. These are the foods which will normally preferred by people endowed with sattva guna. So this is the statement. Now, the great ancient teachers explain this. So one important statement, for example, yavat briyeda jadharam tavas sattvam hi dehinam adhigam dekhabhimanyeda sasteno dantamarhati. So here is a great statement in the Bhagavata, which is based on an ancient concept of contentment. So whatever we need for our health, for our sustenance, that we should eat. And tavas suttam hi dekhinam, that alone can be called the rightful property of the person. What it means is, you can only eat what your body, your system permits you to eat. And those who eat more than what the system needs, they fall sick. And they become a liability to themselves. It is a physical level. But the word used here is, those who possess things and keep things as their property, those who are always greedy, looking for things that they really do not need, that belong to another person. Such a person is called a thief. After who is a thief? A thief is a person who keeps in his room what actually doesn't belong to him. It belongs to the neighbors. Suppose if a person takes something from a neighbor's home and keeps in his room, in his courtyard, he'll be arrested. He's a thief. Like that, when we eat, when we enjoy, when we go after, when we possess more than what we need, what is necessary for our sustenance, that person is a thief. This is the literal meaning. So, similarly, those who eat more than what their body needs, that person finds that food becomes a liability for him. Therefore, the ancient scriptures, the Manusmriti tells you, it defines what is the right food, what is Sattvic food. And as a part of defining what is the right food for developing spiritual qualities, the text Manusmriti, it defines what is the wrong kind of food that will be harmful to the body. Anarogyam, a food that we eat, which makes our body healthy and also mind also healthy. The ancient Ayurvedic text defines a healthy person. Prasannapmendriya manaha susthaha iti apiti, the Charaka Samhita. It's an Ayurvedic text, a text on ancient Indian school of medicine. So, What's the true definition for a healthy person? So stha means healthy person. When his body system and also his senses and his mind, his emotions, they're all in a state of perfect equilibrium, without any agitation, without any pull in either direction. That person's health is supposed to be good, and such a person is supposed to be a healthy person. So samadosha samagnisha samadhadu malakriyaha prasannatmendriya manaha swastha ityadi. That's a full part of this text. So when the metabolism, digestive system, all other aspects of the physical body health system, they are in perfect equilibrium, without any agitation, that person is a healthy person. Somebody who can forget his body, somebody who need not worry about his body, somebody who is not reminded by his body of his existence. Because when we have a health problem, our body is reminding us, I am here, there is something to be fixed. The body doesn't really remind us of anything. We can completely transcend and forget about the body as such. That state of body is supposed to be in a healthy condition. So here it says, food that is not good for health, anarogyam, and food that's not good for long life, longevity, anayushyam, asurkyam, food that doesn't guarantee continuation of a healthy life hereafter, after death. So in ancient traditions, if you do things which are not good for others and also for our good, then the unpleasant consequences of doing wrong things will be felt, will be experienced in the next life. So we should not eat any kind of food that may prompt us to do things which actually can be a problem. That means food that will not make us do wrong karmas, will not bring wrong karmas. It's an important thing, remember. So karma has got two meanings, work and also its consequences. Consequences cannot necessarily be a thing belonging to this life. So any kind of food that will prompt our mind, our temperament, in the direction of doing wrongful things, wrong for us and wrong for society, that food is not Sattvic food. It is not the right kind of food. So it is aswargyam. Anayushyam, food that can reduce our lifespan, anxieties, worries, all these things, in a way that can also be caused by wrong food. So if you take Shankaracharya's definition of food, it can mean wrong associations, wrong emotions, wrong ideas, wrong or unhealthy way of life, all can be different kinds of food. So ahriyada means something that we imbibe, not only through mouth, but also through our senses, through our mind. When we imbibe things into our system, that is also food. So all these can have a negative effect on our health, anarogyam, and also span of life, anayushyam, asurgyam. It can also cause us to do things which may cause sufferings in next life. So this law of karma and the doctrine of reincarnation, all these ideas are actually implied here. Adibhojanam, again, having too much of anything is unhealthy. It is problematic. It can reduce lifespan. For example, there are many interesting stories in the mythological books which have deeper message than just stories. See, for example, somebody in our own tradition, people who help others to live well, those who help aged persons, people living in old age homes, those who do service to them, they will get the benefit of long life, because that is again that is the result of the good karma, the good actions and their consequences. Those who do things to others which can be harmful to their health, that person who is doing harmful things to others, his lifespan will be reduced. So we are asurkya. So every action has a consequence that goes beyond the immediate present, beyond the time when that action is taking place. So real food means, really healthy food means good actions, good emotions, good feelings, good temperament. All these are part of food. So it is Shankaracharya's genius who extended the meaning of food beyond the organic, GMO-free the kind of food that we normally understand by the word food. Food is not just what we eat, food is also what we imbibe through our senses, through association from circumstances. So anarogyam, that which renders our body and mind unhealthy. Anayushyam, that actually can reduce our lifespan. After if a person develops bad habits, eating habits, living habits, that can certainly have an impact on his lifespan. He can reduce lifespan. Alcoholism, drug addiction, and again unhealthy associations, unhealthy habits can certainly have the effect of reducing lifespan. Asurgyam, the consequence. Adibhojanam, anything that is too much is unhealthy. Unhealthy not just in the physical sense, in the overall, the higher sense of what food means. Anything that we imbibe can be food. Apunyam, it can make us do sinful deeds. So you can imagine, what we drink can turn us to the demons. It can even render a person a criminal, because that's very obvious. Again, loga viddusram. Viddusram means people will laugh at you, people will ridicule you, people will hate you if we behave in the wrong manner. And bad behavior is always the result of imbibing bad things, unhealthy things. Tasmat tat parivarjit. Therefore, all these wrong things should be avoided. Not only food that we eat, but food that we imbibe. Another important thing is implied here in the coming verses you find. Food has got two dimensions. In the coming verse, this explained, but that should be explained in this context, otherwise meaning will not be complete. So what's the meaning of pure food? Ahara Suddhi, purity of food. Let's concentrate on the physical meaning, the most elementary meaning of the word food. What we eat is food. So there are two aspects. One is hygiene, the other is purity. So Suchi is the purity dimension. Purity in a non-physical sense. Hygienic is pure, but what is hygienic may not be pure in the subtle sense. So purity has got two meanings, the gross meaning and the subtle meaning. When you eat something that is healthy, hygienically prepared, hygienically preserved, but maybe, let's say, somebody gives you that kind of with a curse, with a bad feeling. That food is hygienic, but it is toxic. So, in a subtle sense, it is not pure. In the gross sense, it is pure. Because that will affect, there's an interesting theory here. So, Sattvic food doesn't mean hygienically agreeable, hygienically proper, not hygienic propriety. A very good hygienic food that we eat, that is prepared by people who may not have a proper good temperament, who may be serving you not with good feeling, not with any affection or love, that food is toxic. Not in the physical sense. But eating that food will not affect our body. By eating that food will affect our mind. That's what. That is the subtle level, there is a connection, which is visible outside. So that is also an implication of ahara shuddhi, of purity of food in the commentary of Shankaracharya. So hygiene and purity, these are two different things. What is hygienically appropriate may not be appropriate in the context of purity. This is an important thing to remember. Suppose food is prepared by your mother, grandmother, or somebody whom you like or who likes you, let's say, and who is your well-wisher. That food is pure in the subtle sense. But if it is non-hygienic, it can cause trouble. But there is another aspect to the very concept of hygiene. It will be spiritually hygiene. So the person who prepares food, who serves food, who eats food, also should have the right emotions, the right feeling, the right mind. That's why in the Bhagavad Gita, there is an important verse that you remember. That is, those who attend our programs in our Vedanta society will remember, Brahmarpanam Brahmagavi Brahmakno Brahmanakudam Brahmaiva Tena Gandavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. It comes in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 24th verse. What do you know what it means? Any food that you get from anywhere, it can be purified through this mantra. What this mantra means is this: the food that is cooked, the person who is cooks the food, and the one who is eating this food, and even in the body system into which this food goes, the digestive system, let all these be pure, like Brahman. So it is called the Brahma Yajna mantra. What it means is, so yajna is a ritual. You have an auspicious fire, and with some secret mantras, you offer something to that fire. The fire is a symbol of the divine. In ancient Vedic traditions, that tradition still continues. So fire is a symbol of the divine, the transcendental, the celestial, so to speak. So, Brahmarpanam, the act of eating food, which is like the act of offering flour or whatever you offer into the fire. And Brahmahavi, what you offer, the what do you call, the pizza that you eat. The pizza, if you can think of it as Brahman, the divine energy, when you chant this mantra, the pizza gets purified. It may be cooked by Hitler himself, but pizza will get purified. Because with great concentration, you utter this sacred mantra. So the food that you eat is purified. It's an idea behind. And then the digestive system into which the food goes, Agno means in fire. That is also Brahman, the divine. And the person who is eating is also divine, Brahman. So Brahman here, for those of you who are familiar with our lecture programs, with the philosophy, Brahman is that word that we use to define, to call, which is actually beyond definition and names, but still we use a term to indicate that absolute reality, the divine principle, which is all-pervading, which is immanent, which is omnipresent, which is transcendental, which is everywhere. So, that divinity you meditate upon, that divinity is within you and within everyone. you meditate, you contemplate on that, on the fact that everything is Brahman, everything is divine. And you chant this mantra, and with this mantra, whatever you eat becomes purified. Because human will, human imagination has got a powerful effect on whatever we do. So with this strong conviction, we utter this mantra. This Shankaracharya says, Brahma arpanam yena karnena brahmavid havihi agno arpayadi tad brahma eva iti pashyadi tasya atma vidirekena abhavam pashyadi. So there is nothing in this world other than Atman or Brahman. So you are the divine, the food that you eat is divine, and the act of eating food is divine, the result is divine. So with this strong conviction, if a person utters this mantra, then whatever you eat, it becomes purified. So a food becomes pure food, sattvic food, when you chant this mantra. That's why traditionally it is being chanted everywhere. You can buy anything from anywhere. In the airport, in the train, everywhere. You need not do loudly. People may think you're crazy. But then, mentally, if you just contemplate on this idea, that's enough. Because when we sincerely contemplate an idea, it has got a visible, a physically verifiable effect. That's you can see everywhere, those who turn to spiritual life. So, that food becomes healthy, it becomes hygienic, it becomes sattvic, it promotes sattvic feelings, sattvic emotions, sattvic temperament, thoughts, ideas, everything. So, that's why this text tells you. So, that food, whatever may be that food, it becomes sattvic. Again, of course, there is a well-known verse, Yoga Kundalini, an ancient Upanishad. I want to explain this, the list of ancient text, because the practice dividing food between hygienic and pure in the spiritual sense, it is totally alien to people who think it's impossible for you to have any pure food in modern times. You can't be sure. You cannot imagine somebody is cooking your food in some distant food processing factory should have the heart of a Jesus Christ. It is something that you cannot imagine to happen. Only Buddhas and Christ can eat and cook food in the world. It doesn't happen. We have no control over that. But whatever food we eat, if we keep in our mind, everything is divine. With this mantra, that's why this mantra has been chanted for thousands of years in India, just before eating food. Then, this definition. Susnigdam madhurakaram chaturthangam vivarjitaha bhujyade shivasampriti mitahara uchide. What is proper food? What is moderation in food is being defined here. Mitahara means moderation in eating. Moderation means you cannot say Gandhi, you cannot say he is practicing moderation. Fasting is not moderation. Any more than gluttony is moderation. So both extreme fasting and also extreme gluttony, being a glutton, both are the opposite of moderation. So that's why, Lord Krishna in the Gita says, Yukta ahara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasya. Yukta here means moderate. Our food should be such that after eating that food, our body should not complain, bringing the mind to bodily level. So our goal is to go beyond body consciousness. For that, body should not pull our mind to its level. So, we should be able to forget the body. So, extreme fanatical fasting is non-spiritual, as much as extreme gluttony is non-spiritual. So, this is an important. That's why, susnigdha madhurakaram chaturthangam vivarjidaha bhujyade shiva samprite mitahara uchyade. So, whatever we eat should be eaten with proper prayer, a prayerful attitude. For in that case, every food becomes sattvic. That's why, there are two types of attitudes for food. People who eat to live and people who live to eat. So that's the meaning here. Eating to live and living to eat are two different things. So the purpose is one should be able to eat for living and not living to eat. So I'm just finishing the 8, and this is a very, very important definition of what we call moderation in food, which avoids the extremes of fasting and also the extremes of overeating. Both are equally opposite to the very concept of moderation in food. This is an important thing to remember. So then there is a very famous verse, Kattu amla levanatushna tikshna ruksha vidahinaha akara rajasa seshta dukkha shokamaya pradaha. It's a very important verse. So what it means is Kattu amla levanatushna. So food that's bitter, food that's sour, saline, full of salt, excessively hot, pungent, dry, burning, like extreme amount of chili. Again, there is an implication. Everything is okay at in a moderate degree, but everything is inappropriate when it becomes adibhojanam, so the varjya, that's a central principle. I mean, excessive eating, excessive consumption in the broader sense is always unhealthy. So food that creates, let's say, excitement. Certain food can excite our emotions and feelings, biological drives, violent tendencies. It can very easily, I don't need to explain further. Drinks and things that we eat can very visibly, very clearly, obviously can excite our emotions and feelings. People do terrible things under intoxication, but they may be very sattvic in normal times. Next day morning, if you meet them, they'll be perfectly okay. But when they are under the power of intoxication, their mind functions differently. So it's an implication. Any kind of food that creates excitement, and then which contains excitable things, which can disturb the balance of the mind. All these can be called Rajasiga food, mean below Sattva. It can make you do great things for a short time. Food items that helps you to use your explosive energy to accomplish great physical feats for a short time. Steroid, things like that. It can help you to do great things, but just next moment, you fall to the earth with a thud. That's the idea. So this is Rajasiga food. If you eat Sattvic food, you should be able to do great things, but without being excited. So you don't have to fall down to the earth with a touch. That's about. But if you eat excitable food, that gives you the ability to explode with energy for a very short time, only to fall down to the lowest level after some time. So anyway, we will discuss this later with the commentary. And now we can have discussion. You're most welcome. Yeah.
In certain environments, like a toxic workplace or certain relative groups, there is a lot of tama and raja qualities. So that is at one end, and the other end is if you keep away from that and retain your sattvic nature, then you fall more isolated and alone. So how to balance the two?
Yeah. Actually, even discussion of this topic will give our mind a sense of understanding the dynamics of reacting to disturbing circumstances or environments in workplace elsewhere. But one thing is, as for what is eating, very, very coming to the very ordinary sense, if we keep in mind everything is one divine principle. Actually, this is based on Advaita philosophy. Remember this. I mean, everything is divine. Everything is just a permutation, combination of the same divine energy. Once we keep that in mind, and in fact that's the implication of this mantra, then your sankalpa, what the thoughts that you have in your mind will have a visible effect on what you eat. Because this is not a physical level. This is not a physical level. Physically you cannot verify that the temperament of the person who gives you food will affect the quality of the food, or it will affect the emotions that can emerge in your mind after eating that food. There is no way to verify this at the physical level. So which means we are going beyond the physical level, at the subtle level. So this problem is at the subtle level. So by doing this sankalpa, by remembering this, or just keeping in mind everything is divine, and if possible mentally, silently, you can think of this mantra. If you cannot remember the mantra, just the spirit of this mantra, if you can keep in mind, that will purify it. That's the real meaning of people take drops of water and take round when they eat. That's the real meaning. Of course, it has a different mantra, is there? Satyindratena Parishinchami. It's a mantra from Vedic tradition, but that need not be for modern times. Even this mantra itself is a much more powerful mechanism that will help us to purify whatever we eat. That's the idea behind. So no matter where you are eating your food, no matter whom you are associating with in everyday life, it doesn't really matter. But then you have to work, you have to live in this world. For that you need to act in the appropriate manner to sustain your life. That's very important. But in the midst of all that, and along with that, this can be kept as a higher idea. That's the idea behind. Yeah. Surprisingly, I will just before you the question, this fact, you find surprisingly there is no clear reference to vegetarian, non-vegetarian concepts in this chapter. And the reason is, this is not very often remembered by people. If you read the Mahabharata and Valmiki Ramayana, the ancient text, or even the Vedic literature, including Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is no clue, there is no indication that the ancient Vedic culture was a vegetarian culture. Vegetarianism as a concept became well known in theory and also in practice, mostly due to the influence of Jainism. That was, Vardhamana Mahavira was an elder contemporary of Buddha. He was also a prince of Vaishali kingdom, the 6th century BC. So that's why in this text, you can see it's so universal. Gita is so universal. So universal. I had an experience some time back, years ago, in one of our Vedanta centers in the East Coast, giving a talk afterwards. Somebody stood up and asked a question, Swamiji, can anyone be spiritual without being a vegetarian? And I just countered that question with a counter question. Hitler eventually became a vegetarian, as you may know his history. And Christ was obviously a non-vegetarian. Again, you can imagine the parable of distributing a small number of fish to thousands of people. So also Buddha, of course. So many of the ancient Kshatriya kings were practitioners of this Vedanta and yoga. They were not always vegetarians necessarily. They were Kshatriyas, So I asked this particular person a question. See, Hitler was a vegetarian, Christ was not. Do you think Hitler was more spiritual than Christ? And the person who asked this question happened to have been a Jewish person. So you can imagine, no one can understand better than the implication. So, Sattvika, Rajasiga, Tamasiga discussion, it goes beyond vegetarian, non-vegetarian equation. Vegetarian food is absolutely wonderful. It's a preferable food. If you are going to meditate, if you are going to practice deep contemplation and meditation, you don't have much work to do and you want to live a very, let's say, retired life, vegetarian food is the most appropriate. Again, it is not the only way, it is certainly preferable, no doubt about it. Again, it's a matter of culture. Somebody like me, who have been vegetarian for hundreds of generations, thousands of years, can't even think of anything else. But that doesn't necessarily make a person spiritual or otherwise. So it goes, Lord Krishna, see that's the importance of this book. It is so universal. Lord Krishna is addressing the problem in the context of humanity and human civilization. He is not addressing Arjuna. So here the importance is given to Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic temperaments, and not to what precise item you should eat for breakfast or not. That is not at all the matter of discussion. What kind of food is appropriate for developing Sattvic qualities? That's the idea behind. Having said that, there is no doubt that if you want to live a very peaceful, let's say, spiritual life, contemplative life, there is nothing better than a strictly vegetarian food. That's the most preferred thing. But it also means, of course, again, that there is a statement here, and that may, Lord Sri Ramakrishna says, I can just quote one very, very well-known verse from Sri Ramakrishna, the Gospel. It comes here, what Sri Ramakrishna says about food, maybe somewhere else. He says, it doesn't matter what you eat, if you can think of God, eating whatever food you eat, that's more important than thinking of worldly things and remaining a strict vegetarian. So Sri Ramakrishna says something to that effect, which I shall refer to later. Okay, now please continue discussion. Please ask the question. Yeah.
Swamiji, first of all, thank you for the lecture. I almost feel like, I don't know if this is an appropriate question, but yes. You talk about using this, I think you called it Brahman Yetya mantra.
Yeah.
And the idea of sort of trying to keep the idea in your mind that everything is Brahman and divine. How do we, on one hand, keep that concept, but on the other hand, we're making classifications with types of food or behavior, actions, thoughts, speech, all that in terms of sattva, rajas, and tamas. How do we have a distinguishing quality on one level, but then on another level we're having this whole idea of everything is Brahman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember, right now the text is discussing the dynamics of different food and their impact on human temperament in the 17th chapter. So we are discussing Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic food, types of food, and it's very important for us to prefer to be able to cultivate the habit of eating food that is Sattvic. So it was our subject. The question arises, what about the different types of food that we eat? See, cut to amla levana atyushna tekshna rukshavidahina called right. You should avoid food that is saline, bitter, extremely hot. Hot in both, the extreme hot in the sense of heat of the taste, but also heat of temperature. All should be avoided, mentioned there, because that's a kind of food which belongs to Rajasika type. So question arises, we have no choice in this matter in modern times. Somebody living 21st century in California, how can you have a choice in this matter? If you're living in a forest, you can easily live on Sattvic food. So in modern context, how to practice this, the habit of turning Rajasic food into Sattvic food. So in that context, I was referring to this mantra in the 4th chapter of the Gita, 24th mantra. The mantra has got two dimensions. One, it is actually a an interesting discussion of the all-pervading, immanent, transcendental reality, Brahman is everywhere. On the other hand, it has got a purificatory effect. If you think of the mantra, if you chant this mantra on, just before eating food. That's the idea behind. So it has got a ritualistic effect, ritualistic dimension. So, but you cannot do that when you are sitting in the airport. The practical side. So if you think of this and eat whatever food you get, it becomes Sattvic. Again, this Sattvic concept is at a subtle level, not a physical level. Okay, come, yeah.
So this is where I don't know if it's appropriate, but to draw that concept to a more philosophical level, if everything is Brahman, everything is divine, people have asked this question before in India, I would imagine. I'm thinking of Joseph Campbell asking this question to a guru in India. If everything is divine, how do I really discard or really distinguish anything? You know, how do I really decide that this is appropriate, this is not appropriate? You know what I'm saying? If everything is really ultimately divine, and that's why I don't know if this is a good question.
That's true. It is the difference between a kindergarten child and a university student studying in Harvard. A kindergarten child has to learn the alphabet with great strain, all the letters of the English language, and then learn writing, reading, things like that. Go to primary school, then university level. Everything is Brahman is an experience which is equivalent to going to the highest university in the world, in spiritual life. It is not just a concept, but it is a matter of experience. And that experience comes as a result of spiritual disciplines that you practice, not in one life, maybe in several life cycles. So, as a part of preparing for this experience, which will happen sometime in future, you have to begin with by practicing Sattvic food. So, but then in modern context, 21st century California, you cannot always depend upon Sattvic food. You go to a restaurant, can you tell them, I want Sattvic food? Very unlikely that you will get a plate full of Sattvic food. So what do? You think, well, you have no choice. So I was connecting that with that, you know. Yeah. Thank you. In fact, this question is very, very, very helpful for explaining more.
So if I could maybe just mirror back to you, make sure I understand that. So at the highest level of experience, somebody like Sri Ramakrishna or something like that, everything is Brahman, everything is divine. But for the majority of us on the path, in the preparatory sort of level, it is wise to follow these guidelines or these distinctions. Does that make sense?
Exactly, precisely. And then once you practice this, I can tell you, once you practice this way of turning Rajasic food into Sattvic food, the way you think, the way you react to situations around you will also change. Then many of these questions that we are asking, we won't ask. That's an important thing. So everything is Brahman as a concept is something you have to keep in mind. But you should also remember we have not reached the experience level of that concept. Right now it's only an idea. So, but then the idea itself has got a great value. So I was just referring to this ritualistic practice prevailing in India for the last several thousands of years of chanting this mantra just before food. So many people do that, but they don't know the real implication of this. So it is called Brahma Yajna mantra, a mantra which means everything is divine, divine act, divine way of functioning. So eating food also is an act of worship. So that's the idea behind. So once we keep this in mind, then whatever we eat becomes Sattvic food. That's the idea. Okay, thank you.
Just asking a little part of my first question.
Yeah.
If there is an environment where there is lot of sattva, lot of tama and raja,
Yeah.
and staying away from that environment makes you more sattvic. So, but it can lead to more like austerity, or it can lead to isolation. Which is preferable, being sattvic or being in that raja or tama environment? Yeah.
It depends on how practical it is, because modern times are different from ancient times. Remember, many of these ideas were first taught thousands of years ago. That's long before even agrarian civilization set in. Mostly people lived in forest hermitages, small hamlets. So, right now we are living in an entirely different world. So, all that you can do is to try to keep yourself connected with some of these higher ideas. And that will help us to practice some degree of sattvic qualities wherever you are. You cannot have a choice. You can't have a choice in modern times. So unless we give some practical connection, people think these some forest hermitage ideas originated in forest hermitage in ancient India. So it has no practical implication in modern times. For example, I give this example. You go to a restaurant. You have no choice. The food that comes to you. We don't know who prepared, with what temperament. Perfectly natural. So you can mentally turn that into sattvic food by remembering this mantra, or of course mostly many won't be able to remember the exact mantra, but then the idea that everything, the act of eating, the food, everything is divine reality. That's the idea. Because what you call in Sanskrit is called sankalpa. The human will, which is, if you think in your mind with some intensity, it has got a visible effect. Very difficult to prove, impossible to prove, but it's a fact. That's the idea behind. So thank you for the questions, and we will continue this discussion. And before we conclude, I want to mention we have an important program on Sunday, November 12th, day after tomorrow evening at the new temple at 2323 Velogo Street, San Francisco, new temple. We have worship of Divine Mother Kali, 7:30 p.m. in the evening. On Sunday, November 12th, new temple, 2323 Velogo Street, San Francisco. We are worshipping worship of Divine Mother Kali. It is the equivalent of Deepavali, so to speak. Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Rama Krishna Arpanamastu.